Hi, welcome back to another Stand on Guard episode. We're a little late tonight. I know we start early in the morning here, but there's been a lot going on today. And I've been talking to a lot of folks at the Edgewood, BC farm, otherwise known as the Universal Ostrich Farms. And it's incredible what's been going on. We'll be back momentarily with more. Okay, how ingenious is that? Showing you my merchandise at the beginning, not the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching, and we might not show that later, but uh, there's so much going on right now. I don't know where to begin because can you believe Doug Ford? And we are going to be discussing the latest at Universal Ostrich Farms in a minute here, but I can't believe Doug Ford has done it again. And it's absolutely incredible. Trump administration is shifting away from depopulation from bird flu. How is that related to Doug Ford? Well, Doug Ford decided to put out a video today. This kills me. And believe me, this is it's integral to what's happening at Universal Ostrich Farms because what the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and what the Liberal government is saying, when they say anything about this, is that it's going to hurt trade with the United States if these ostriches are alive, if they're allowed to live. So here's Donald Trump really PO'd because Doug Ford put out a video. The Ronald Reagan Foundation has just announced that Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement, which is fake in capital letters, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. The ad was for $75,000. They only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. Tariffs are very important to the national security and economy of the USA. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are now hereby terminated. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. I find this really bizarre that Donald Trump would take such offense over Doug Ford. Doug Ford, of course, is the half-witted idiot who constantly seeks media attention to pour out the booze that he thinks is emanating from the United States. And the other night, I finally found a restaurant in town that had a secret staff of Jack Daniels, but we won't tell Doug Ford about that. It's incredible to me how small minded this man is. But how does this help the ostrich farm? Well, we're getting there because this helps the ostrich farm because this is all about this trade negotiation with Donald Trump is all about making Donald Trump happy. And Donald Trump is not very happy about what's happening to hundreds of ostriches or could happen. And right now it's happening in terms of maltreatment, cruelty, abuse of ostriches, and what could happen if the federal government follows through on its threat to kill these ostriches. Donald Trump will not be happy about this because Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, has said now twice These birds are vital to understanding a lot of things. But first of all, and foremost of all, herd immunity. They have developed antibodies that could save not just other birds, other ostriches, but the whole human race. We have to keep saying that because the federal government in Canada is too dense to understand that. Now, we're going to show a bit more of the fun and games here. Remember how things used to be with Donald Trump, with Ronald Reagan, president, my favorite president, whom I met when I was just a young lad. I met Ronald Reagan. He was my hero. I love Reagan. He was also a free trader. Oh, sorry.
One very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Okay, that's the Reagan I remember. Let's watch a bit more of this. Remember this scene? I remember very well. I was just a wee lad. So I remember this very well. This is how U.S.-Canadian relations. This is how Canada-U.S. relations used to be. And I remember when that played over and over and over again on the mainstream media during that, I think it was 1984, when President Reagan visited Canada. They went to Quebec, actually. And Brian Mulroney was just absolutely beside himself. But what came out of that meeting? I remember so many people in even my cousins, my uncles and aunts saying, "Oh, it's terrible how Brian Mulroney is so tied to the United States." And I said, "Well, of course we're tied to the United States, you idiot." No, no, I didn't quite say it that way, but yes, of course we're tied to the United States. You got to be tied to the United States in a good way or a bad way. And in those days, we were tied to the United States in a very good way. We were good allies. And it was a wonderful, wonderful exhibition of allies working together, working towards free trade. They couldn't be further apart right now in terms of Canada and US. And let's watch this. This is what we've become. What? Remember that. And when Irish eyes are smiling, here is what we become.
The question is not how I react, but what do we do? And my answer to that is head down.
So that's where we have.
The question is not whether.
That's where we have become. We have a industry minister supposedly looking after industry. I think she looks after a number of other things, but we won't go there tonight. So Melanie Jolie says, "Put your head in the sand," which of course we all hear about ostriches. So inexplicably or not, or perhaps unintentionally or not, Melanie Jolie has tied herself to the ostrich incident. And it's quite interesting what's going on here. I want to show you this film here. I'm going to show you more of it later. This, of course, is more film from Edgewood, BC. Edgewood, BC has become the, how did I describe it? It's become the focal point of Mark Carney's police state. It's become a microcosm, that's the word, microcosm of Mark Carney's police state. So what happens to the waste? And so we're getting down to it. And this video is thanks to Tal Salisbury, another one of the locals who is on the farm every day, protesting, supporting Katie and her family. So this is what's going on here. This is the transfer site. What happens is that the waste comes from the Ostrich farm to a not to a landfill site, but a grain, like literally a sand bin about 5 or 6 miles outside of town. It's dropped there, and then it goes to the secondary site, which is called Super Save. And I have numerous people confirming this. So it goes from a gravel pit. It stops at a gravel pit. They unload it. We showed you that video earlier this week. It gets unloaded at the gravel pit. It gets loaded back onto trucks, and they send it to Super Save, the same company that's supplying the fencing to Universal Ostrich Farms. Okay. So you're saying, what the hell is going on here? Why do they need a middleman? We don't know where it goes. Obviously, it's going to the landfill after that. The question is, who is authorizing this? Because it's going from the farm to the gravel pit to the company. And I've asked one of the people involved in the story to find out if they can document it arriving at the landfill site. So if it does land at the landfill site, and if you take the CFIA at its word that this is toxic waste, what is going on here? Is this toxic waste going from the farm to a gravel pit, to a third member, then to a landfill site? Because if so, I'm sorry, the CFIA is getting rid of toxic waste in their own admission, and they're not telling the public about it. They're not revealing this to taxpayers in the region who are paying for this atrocity. We need more information about this. And this is why we have begun here at Stand on Guard, and I'm going to work with whomever can come forward. We are investigating this. This is an official investigation, journalistic investigation into where this garbage is coming from. Why is the farm producing so much garbage? What's in those bags? Where is it going? Why does it have to go through a second party, third party transfer site? Which is what? Basically another branch of the CFIA's operations. This is the same company that's supplying the fencing. Why is it going there? And then presumably, because we can't prove this yet, but we will, presumably to a landfill site. So I think I need to go out there and verify what's going on, because apparently nobody's watching these trucks at night. And we'll get to this next. We'll get to this next. The CFIA, this Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which calls itself a savior of animals and humans, protecting your health, which is nothing more than a mobile death squad now. They felt compelled to respond to the videos and the testimony that we have been putting out on this station over the last couple of weeks. And once again, if you're watching tonight and you know more about this, tell me. Text me at davidcrayden@hotmail.com. Put your comments in the comments section. I have been responding to a number of people, and this is why I got the video tonight, because people have been responding to me. And Salisbury will be on the show in a couple of days to talk about what he's seen. What we need to know is where this material is going from here. This is what we needed. This is an investigation. You're watching this investigation going on in the United States over the Charlie Kirk murder. You're not satisfied with that either. I'm not satisfied either. I think we need to get more information about what happened, what transpired on that day. And Candace Owens, for instance, is one of those people who's fighting back and is asking for more information. I'm asking for you. Give me more information. See what we can do. And here, I'm going to show you this incredible document from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency that came out today. We'll be right back here. Here we go. There we go. We'll be right back with this. Sorry for the delay here. This came out this afternoon. I love this update on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's ongoing presence at the Edgewood, BC ostrich farm. This would never have come out from the CFIA had we not been on the scene, talking to people, doing interviews, asking questions, those uncomfortable questions that the CFIA doesn't want to answer. Now, we'll go through this. And I have to mention that Katie Pasikne, who is the chief spokeswoman for the farm, has addressed all of these allegations. And you can check that out. We'll put that in the description later in terms of what Katie has put out. But this is incredible. All right, October 22nd. This is today. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFI, has respected and will continue to respect all orders and decisions of the courts throughout the ostrich farm legal process. Bullshit. They have ignored the courts. They have ignored the Supreme Court's demand that they look after the birds. They have not done that. So this is crap from the very beginning, from a crap agency, from a authoritarian paramilitary force that is nothing more than a mobile death squad. That's what the CFI is. And they would not have put this out had we not pushed back every bloody day. The CFA warrants for the 3 ostrich farm What 3 ostrich farm properties? There are not 3 ostrich farm properties. They are illegally occupying the neighbor of this ostrich farm, who happens to be a relative. This is Katie's aunt. This is Karen Esperson's sister, who owns this property. The CFA has illegally occupied this farm. It has nothing to do 3 Ostrich Farm properties. As ordered by the Supreme Court of Canada, the CFIA continues to have custody of the birds. And that means, what does custody mean? So the CFIA, it means letting the birds die of so-called natural causes, pre-existing conditions. Preparations for the care of the ostrich during the winter season are being implemented by the CFIA based on the owner's description of past practices, but are limited by the poor condition of the few facilities on the farm. Another lie. There's no poor facilities on the farm. This is a farm that is completely prepared and ready to deal with ostriches. This is a lie. Lie after lie after lie from your federal government, from this paramilitary force calling itself the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Pending the Supreme Court of Canada decision, the CFA is authorized to remain at the 3 specified properties. Bullshit. For as long as necessary to complete the search, seizure, and disposal of animals and things specified in the notice to dispose issued to the farm owners. Okay, this is another piece of BS. If you read the warrant to search, there's nothing in that warrant to search that guarantees the CFIA endless access to this farm. They were supposed to apply for another application on Wednesday, October 22nd. They did not because they lied, and the RCMP lied to the media about it as well. They are basing this on a document that has no file number, that is signed by somebody who could be as lowly as a clerk. We don't know if this individual is even a justice of the peace or a judge. And this is what the CFI is basing continued occupation and terrorism against this farm on. Entirely on what they say are their legal parameters. Now, as I said, Katie has responded to all of this, and I'm going to be including that. Incredible. Okay, I have to say this, though. This is incredible. Even though the CFIA acknowledges that 1 bird died of a pre-existing condition, 0 birds have been removed from the farm by the CFIA. They got caught in their own lies. And it's interesting. They've highlighted this now. I put this news release up a couple of hours ago, and I said, this is just a pile of shit. This is crap. And they have highlighted that very line because they know they were caught in a lie. And get this, 1 bird died of a pre-existing condition. Bullshit. On October 4th. Despite the administration of medications and all electrolytes provided by the farm owners. You saw that video. They did not allow that bird, Spirit, let's call that bird what she was. They did not allow the electrolytes anywhere near that bird. You saw the video. They deliberately dumped those electrolytes far enough away so that ostrich could not consume the electrolytes. Once again, the CFI is lying. And as I said, we'll have more of this from Katie later today. I find this absolutely obnoxious. This is what we've come to in this country, folks. We have a lying government, a lying police agency, a lying bureaucracy, and they think they can get away with it because they just have done so for months, for years, for decades. And we are going to stop it right now. We're not going to put up with this anymore because this is a totally corrupt government. Now, I want to show a bit more of this. I'm going to show this again. This is the latest film I've received today. This is filmed October 8th by Tel Salisbury. And this shows that there's a collusion going on between the RCMP, which is literally taken over a gravel pit about 5 miles away from the Ostrich farm. They moved the garbage, which nobody ever sees, to this transfer site, which is a business. Yes. This is the same business that produces, that is responsible for the fencing that's going up at the farm. So they move it all here. They compact it, and then what happens? They move it to a landfill, I presume. And this is what I'm asking. If you have videos of where this garbage ends up, is it ending up in a landfill site? Public landfill site? Or a private one for that matter? Where's it going? Because if this garbage goes from the Ostrich farm inevitably to a landfill site, that's a contravention of the CFI rule and the RCMP, because they are dumping what they say is toxic landfill in a public landfill site. I've looked it up. There's no private landfill sites around here. They're all public. So where is the garbage going? What's going on here? Are they dumping this in a site that is potentially public? And this is exactly what's wrong with this whole operation. And because there's no feedback, there's no explanation from the CFIA or the RCMP as to why the RCMP is dumping this trash, first of all, in a gravel pit. Why is it being compacted at this site here, which you're watching right now? Why is it being compacted there? What's going on? We need to know. Because if the CFIA really believes that it is dumping toxic waste, then they need to explain why they're dumping toxic waste. First of all, at a local gravel site that they've taken over. The RCMP has literally taken over a local gravel pit. Then they're taking it to a local business. Then it's going somewhere from there. So where is it going? What is happening to it? The CFIA needs to come up with some answers here. And they're not doing that. We will have more information on this tomorrow. I'm going to have Tel, if he agrees, to come on the show to talk about more of this tomorrow. Because when the CFIA releases a report as it did today to say, we're not doing any of this stuff, what are they responding to? They're responding to the reports that I've had on this program. Nobody from the CFIA responded until we put this video up on the screen and said, what's happening here? Why is the RCMP dumping the CFIA garbage? Where is it going from there? Is it toxic? If you really believe it's toxic, how can you possibly dump it in a local gravel pit and then remove it to a local business? If you believe that, unless you don't really believe that. And this is all about your agenda at the CFIA. And I really believe that's what's been going on here from day one. And they would not have put out that news release today unless they really believed it. We'll be back in a minute with some more information here.
My message, of course, to the Prime Minister is that people can't afford to pay anymore, that they're tapped out, their grocery bills, their rent is too high after 10 years of excess spending. So I shared my view that we need the government to bring down its inflationary deficits and taxes. I was grateful for the chance to sit down with the Prime Minister. We had a good conversation. He didn't make any commitments. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes up with.
You said you hoped he was in listening mode. Did you feel that was the case?
I think we both were. We had a good back and forth, and we shared our respective views. I'm not going to report to you anything that he said because that was in the four walls of the room. I can only speak for myself, and I reiterated that we need this to be an affordable budget. We've seen over the last 10 years of Liberal deficit spending is driven up the cost of living and driven down investment in our country. So my message is it's time to reverse course on the costly decade of deficit spending that has given us more expensive food and housing. The Canadian people deserve a break. The cost of government is driving up the cost of living, and so if the Prime Minister is serious about making Canada a more affordable country, then he needs to bring forward an affordable budget.
Do you get the sense this is a budget that you can support?
Sorry, go ahead.
We can take both.
Okay, you go first.
Do you get the sense that this is a budget you could support?
I haven't seen anything, so but for the party, and we'll see what he comes up with.
I mean, history, though, is that opposition parties, official opposition parties, do not support the budget. I mean, you just don't. It's not party.
I wanted to show you this before I forgot. Why is all of this that's happening at Universal Ostrich Farms out of sync with reality? And because we know Donald Trump today said he's finished with negotiations because he can't stand Doug Ford appropriating Ronald Reagan, even though Ronald Reagan was a free trader. That's got nothing to do with the fact that Doug Ford has once again sabotaged relations between Canada and the U.S. You have to work with the president you've got today, not the president from 1984. As much as I like that president. But the Trump administration is shifting away, as you can see this article, away from depopulation for bird flu. This has been happening now since the United States decided to withdraw from the World Health Organization and all of its subsidiaries, including the World Animal Health Organization, which is dictating that we have a strong line on stamping out, except it's not, as so many people have told me in the last couple of weeks. The World Health Organization is not as strong on stamping out as the Carney government is. Now, why is that? Why is the World Health Organization backing away from stamping out policy? Well, because the United States has withdrawn from the World Health Organization. And what else? Well, the United States is saying stamping out makes no sense, because when you do that, you're killing the animals who have developed natural antibodies to a disease. And it is completely in the face of big pharma demanding we buy vaccines. Now, let's remember here. I'm going to show you this. What happened exactly at the same time that the CFIA rescinded an exemption for this farm, for Universal Ostrich Farm. They had an exemption based on the unique genetics of the ostrich. So they didn't have to so-called cull or quote, depopulate, unquote, the ostriches on that farm. So what happened? From January 6th to January 8th, something was going on. Something was going on. And clearly, this is something the government does not want to talk about. Does not want to talk about at all. And we're going to get to this in a second. There we go. This is significant. Government of Canada purchases avian influenza vaccine to protect individuals most at risk. Look at the date of this news. February 29th, 2025. Almost 6 weeks after the Canadian Food Protection Agency rescinded its exemption to Universal Ostrich Farm to kill all of its ostriches based on a supposed influenza A1N, outbreak. So is there a connection between these two decisions? Of course there is. This has been going on now for almost a year. And this is what the CFIA continues to stand upon. Now, as Katie told me the other day, they have no interest, of course we know they have no interest in testing the animals. They have no interest in even testing the animals. And they say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if these birds had H1N1 a year ago, because they're going through with their policy. But as we have shown you, their policy has nothing.
Very profoundly once said.
Their policy has nothing at all to do with either the World Health Organization or our closest trading partner, the United States. So I think it's very important to outline
But what do we do? And my answer to that is head down. We need to concentrate on what we can control, because there are a lot of things we cannot control. We already know that there's only one person in the American administration that takes decisions, and it is President Trump himself. We know that it is an administration that is very unpredictable, and this has been part of Canadians' lives over the last few months. Now, the Prime Minister just took a plane going to Asian countries, and he will concentrate on finding also new clients and new markets. And that's it. Meanwhile, I'm here in a very important region of Quebec, working with my colleagues, working with local businesses, because we need to make sure that we reduce our dependency on the US. Support our businesses as they have very important workforces and they have very important decisions to take. And my job will be to support that.
So what has happened in the meantime? Canada is losing up to 5,000 jobs in the last couple of months because of Liberal mismanagement. And we can't put this any clearer. Canada is on the precipice of not only economic disaster, and we're on the precipice of losing our free speech. And we'll have John Carpay of the Canadian Centre for Constitutional Freedoms on the show next week. He's in Ottawa next week to talk about the fact we've got 4 surveillance and censorship bills in front of the Parliament of Canada. We got one that hasn't been announced yet. It's going to be an reintroduction of the Online Harms Act. They're going to call it the Online Safety Act in accordance with what the United Kingdom has done. The UK has already introduced the Online so-called Safety Act. The Online Harms Act got a bad bit of publicity when it was first introduced under Justin Trudeau because people read the bill. I read the bill. John Carpay of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom read the bill. Ezra Levant of Rebel News read the bill. Multitudes of broadcasters out there who knew the Justin Trudeau government was targeting them read the bill. And what does that bill say? It's a thought crimes bill. There's a thought crimes component where I can be locked up for not just what I might put out on YouTube, on social media, but from what I might be thinking about putting out. That's called Orwellian. That's called thought speech. And that's what this bill was all about. And it's coming back in the fall because how do I know that? Because Sean Fraser, the Attorney General of Canada and the Justice Minister, positions fused together in this country, announced when Parliament resumed in September that there were a number of censorship bills coming forward. He didn't call them censorship bills. He called them, like safety bills. But he said, we're going to bring back the Online Harms Act. And he said, we're going to call it something else. And I know what they're going to call it, the Online Safety Act. That's coming. That's coming probably in the next 2 weeks or early November before Christmas break. So we could have first reading by the time the MPs go home for their 3 to 4 week Christmas break. And we need to bring down this government in a non-confidence vote before then, or else I could be put out of business. You could be put out of business for stating what you believe in, for saying what you believe in, for having a thought that's different than the Liberal government. And that is where we stand right now. We're on the precipice of losing our freedom. And this is why I'm encouraging all of you to stop thinking it's going to be an ideal parliament. We need a new government. And by the way, I think I would like to go out and finish the final weeks at the Edgewood farm. If you can in any way support me, please do so financially, because I think I need to go out and fight this final battle with them, because there's just so much at stake here. This is not just about ostriches. It's about human freedom. It's about property rights. It's about livestock rights, and it's about a right to continue your livelihood in this country. And we're at the very precipice of losing that in this country. At the same time, Mark Carney is taking the guns away from farmers, not criminals in Toronto and Montreal, but farmers across the country. And yes, they're usually from Western Canada, because Mark Carney hates the West more than any other region in Canada. And what else? Mark Carney is introducing digital ID in the next few weeks, and he's got 4 censorship bills in front of Parliament, and we have got to fight back. If we don't fight back, we're lost. Thank you for watching today. We are going to continue to fight back on this station, and we're going to do it because this is not just the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do. Thanks for watching. God bless you. Godspeed to all of you.